Yeah.
Hello, hello. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Melinda Monar, and this is Iridescent. And we are conversing in and about the new fifth dimensional consciousness that we are embodying, that it is here for us already on Mother Earth, and we are stepping into that platform, on that frequency platform, creating the new earth, the new connections and new relationship structures, business structures, the new human connections here. You get to say hello, or I'll continue introducing what. Yes, I'll continue. I think introducing what came up today to talk about. Mm-hmm. So, just a few minutes before recording this, what the guidance that came to me was to elaborate more on the fear of leaving relationships that don't serve you. And this does not just mean your intimate relationships, but work, friends, any other engagements you have with people that you know doesn't serve you, where you feel that your energy is constantly being brought down, where you don't feel nurtured, nourished, supported, and ultimately inside you know that it's not for your best benefit. It's where you hold on because of the time that you've known this person, or the fear of losing one benefit, or the biggest fear is, what will I do? This part is mainly for intimate relationships. What will I do without them? How will I be alone? So that's one that pretty much everybody who is becoming a higher versions of themselves, who has cleared out and is clearing out a lot of the old ways and coming into this new way of being, is experiencing, has experienced, or will experience. And we're here to give you a few supporting thoughts, ideas, and maybe share how we did it, because the day does come when you have to stand in your truth, in your authenticity, and clean out your sphere.
Yes, absolutely.
And what is your reflection, Iridescent?
Oh, I agree so much with that. I've experienced the fear of losing relationships in a wide spectrum. So I've had it with family when it comes to illness and death. The fear of, what does life look like without a family member who's been here a long time. I've had it with friends where it's like I stayed in one friendship in particular for a very long time, even though I felt really bad when I hung around those people. And it was loyalty to time, because this person was my longest friend. And I was like, how can I possibly, in my eyes at that time, I felt like I was abandoning her. In reality, though, we both just reached this point where so this goes into this idea and concept of divine timing, but like karmic relationships, which can be in all sorts of ways: family members, friends, acquaintances, co-workers, relationships, romantic relationships particularly. And regardless of what happens, whether it ends amicably or it doesn't end in the way that you're hoping, there are lessons that we teach each other. And some people are along for our whole life journey, and some people are with us up to a certain point in our life, where we complete our lessons with each other and we go on our ways, our paths. And So I was really fighting against that for a long time and trying to keep this person in my life because I loved her and I appreciated all that I had learned from her. And I felt like I was giving up on her if I didn't continue to work at it. But I eventually just reached a point that neither of us wanted it anymore. We weren't like, there is a certain level of energy exchange that goes into a relationship, you know, even if it's a coworker, like there's a, yeah, there's just a flow with it. And it became very obvious and undeniable that we bring each other more pain when we're together than joy. And so, yeah, I eventually had to honor what I was needing, and also was honoring that person as well to not be afraid to let go. Because I also have had this happen where sometimes people also just need time to go through their own life lessons. Um, and then if they really are meant to be in your life, they'll come back. I've had friends that has happened. And then, yeah, romantic relationships. My 4-year relationship came up, and I remember I stayed with him for so much longer than I needed to because of that exact fear, a fear of being alone. I had moved states with him. He was the first person that I learned how to be independent with. Um, I really grew with him so much. And it got to a point where I was like, this is definitely not in alignment with where I'm at. We don't have the same goals in life. We're not working towards the same things. And that's an important value for me. Not everyone needs that in a relationship. But anyways, so it was that fear that kept me there for that long, and it brought a lot of suffering because of it for both of us, because I wasn't honoring myself, and because of that I wasn't able to be fully truthful and authentic to my partner when he would pick up on these things. So yeah, for me it just got to a breaking point where it was like the suffering that I was having, I could feel and see that the liberation and freedom of living your authentic self was unconditional love for this person, but unconditional love for myself. And it got to the point where that outweighed any fear or, you know, anything that was holding me in that relationship in the past. And so, though it's really scary to let go of people or to accept what is, you know, dissolving in a relationship, the more you go with that flow and honor what you're needing in that moment, and also communication if you can. It got to the point too where I just needed to be honest with my partner and tell him how I'm feeling. And the fear was also that he would like attack me and be really negative about it. And he actually was not. He was very supportive and understanding. And I think it freed him too, because he thought he was doing something wrong, but he really wasn't. So anyways, kind of dialing back in, the happiness that I'm in now, like I'm so grateful that I honored what I was feeling finally, because I can't really imagine where I would be right now if I wouldn't had did that. But yeah, so I'm gonna give it back to Melinda now. What came up for you?
You. Thank you. Let me see how I want to approach this, because you know I have my own story also, and I know a lot of people can relate with that. Let me generalize that for a moment. So the fear. So I'm gonna bring this into the intimate relationship, because that's the main one. And when you can stand in your truth in that, then the other relationships, the one that's, you know, not as strongly tied, then you know what to do. So culturally, what we're taught, the culture that I grew up in was you need to be in pairs, because that's how we were created, and there's strength in numbers, and it's true, there's strength in numbers. And were we created to be in pairs? Yes, we do well in pairs. Ultimately, we procreate in pairs. Now, do we stay in pairs? That's another thing, because I was never taught as to how do you retain that, how do you hold it together. It's the idea of, oh, we love each other, let's get married, and then there's all that unhappiness, there's all this idea of what the female should do, what the male should do, and then the complaint about each other is just typical because, oh, he's not doing what he's supposed to do. Why isn't he doing this? He's not man enough, or all that. And who knows what the male's version of it is, because typically in my culture, the men didn't express emotions or talk. They would just go and, look down at the end of the glass. And wait, did that come out right? Is that understandable in English?
Yes, I believe so. How
Thank
it came
you.
across
Yes.
to me is like when you said looking down at the bottom of the glass, like
Bottom.
finishing a beer or something and being like, oh, when are you going to get me another one? Because that's at least the stereotype kind of in America where it's like
Bottom of the glass. Yes.
unbalanced men who are kind of in that conditioning pattern will rely on the woman of the house to cook and clean and organize, and they
Very
do
much so.
the working and the fixing stuff around the house and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
That's kind of the main stereotype in America. That's what it was reminding me of when you were talking about it.
Yes. Yes. And even though I do notice a lot of shifts in that, where men also participate in, let's say, cleaning and cooking and helping with the children, but it's that communication point, that being on the same, I'm going to call it playground, the same platform, the same understanding, which is coming to that place in your authentic truth, being able to be open. And how do you do that when you're not even open with yourself, when you're not even authentic with yourself? So I know the beginning of this was, how do you leave relationships? But your first relationship is with yourself and to yourself. And when you have never been modeled that, when you have not learned the language or even had the space held, how it is to be authentic to yourself and in yourself, when you've been in certain patterns in your families, which we've all been, every family has their pattern, every individual has their pattern. When two individuals come together, then they create another pattern, another dynamic. And children growing up in that relationship pick that up. Either they identify with it or not. They feel like, oh gosh, I was born into this family that I have nothing to do with, or yes, this is the right way to do. But you yourself have a relationship with yourself that's based on those conditionings. So this is where, self-sabotaging, self-soothing, procrastinations, fears, self-judgments, all these things come in. So when you are laced with that, when your origin of expression of yourself, as it comes out, let's just think that's your core, and that is laced with all these ideas, fears, beliefs, misbeliefs, energetic constructs, how then, I ask, can you have an authentic relationship with another? Because more than likely, you will attract another who also has similar patterns, because there are patterns in both of you that are attracting each other. So it is your patterns are having a relationship with another body that holds the same pattern. And you may call it love. You may call it, I need him, her. I love him and her. He or she is so nice. He's there to support me. Well, he does this and that, or she does this and that a little bit, but that's okay because there's this other part of him that's so nice. Or I'm so afraid, I don't want to be alone then, so I'm just going to put up with this and that.
Yeah.
So how does one come to that center and cleanses it out to where all those lacing from outside dissolve and absolve and come back into that center of authentic relationship?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great question because for sure, up until this point where I'm at currently in life, all of my past partners I manifested out of being in a trauma survival state. It was how, like, there were people that reinforced the toxic patterns of my family and how I received love and attention in that way. So in terms of how do people leave a situation where they know they're not honoring themselves, but all of these fears, the unknowns, family patternings, societal patternings are standing in the way? I think looking back at how I did it, because I really at one point was like, I don't know if I ever will have the strength to do this, and this might just be my reality forever, and I'm just gonna like whatever. And so I think what I first started doing was I became aware that I was unhappy, and I sat with that for a bit, and then I started, once I could actually like digest, I guess, this idea that maybe I'm unhappy in my relationship. I then started working through that because that started bringing up a lot of guilt and shame for me personally around like, oh, I'm not trying hard enough. I'm being a bad partner. And then I did my best to communicate with my partner. Again, we had a toxic dynamic. So our conversation style wasn't the healthiest. But when we were able to set that aside, we were able to have really powerful conversations. So then I started just having conversations with this person. And this is where I think it really helped me to keep my courage and strength in moving forward and being authentic with myself, was I started reflecting on what is it that I want in a relationship? What about this relationship feels as empty as it did back then? And what is it missing that I'm wanting? And once I started kind of pinpointing that, I did want to see if this person was willing to work on these things. And so I brought up these different aspects that I felt like this person could work on to help support our relationship. And I left it obviously open for that same criticism and constructiveness. And this person at the time took it as a total attack and like didn't do that. And so it got to a point where they weren't willing to work with me or be what I felt like a partner in the situation. And also, I had a trusted person I could talk to about this at the time. And a mixture of all those things really helped me reach the ending point where I said, okay, enough is enough. Like, this is just reached its end. And I don't know if that necessarily made sense, but it was like being aware that I'm unhappy was the first step, reflecting on why, and attempting to make changes in both my personal life and asking the person I'm working with to also make changes if they're willing. Um, Confiding in people that I trusted with and getting their outside perspectives, because sometimes, especially in romantic relationships, you can get so tunnel visioned and stuck in the pattern that's playing out. It can be hard to have that perceptive, open-minded perspective. And then, like, when I felt strong enough to do so, and I did, it took courage, but I eventually just had that conversation. And thankfully, this person asked me, like, do you still want to be with me? So it gave me an option to be like, actually, no, I don't. And here's why, and let's talk about it. And yeah, so yeah, hopefully that helps. I'm sharing through story, like personal experience, because that for me is what helps me and to give, you know, everything, it's going to be different for every person how to go about these situations. But for me, when I can hear other people's stories and how they handled it in real life, it helps me to, first of all, just know I'm not alone. And secondly, to like open my perspective to different ways to handle a situation, especially if you're really in the emotional thickness of it. It can just be really hard to stay grounded and to know what is true to you in that moment. So journaling as well, just really putting your thoughts down there and what you're feeling.
Yes, thank you. Yes, personal stories are, I think, always helpful. I know I have learned so much from personal stories when I was going through this growth, and understanding the relationship. First, I always thought, oh, it's his fault. If he just changed this and that. And then it became, okay, what can I change? I've always search YouTube, and personal stories were really great way of relating, because also I've noticed that we as a human, we seem to come down in similar patternings. I know a few people that I've met who we have such similar ways of seeing things, and the relationships that we've attracted and handling them, that it's almost like we came from the same batch of coding, and we're here to teach each other, to learn, and to shift those things, and also to support, very much the support. If I look at my past relationship, that was 11-year relationship, and like I said in the beginning, it was surface level. It was only if he were to change this, then would be good. Then only if he were to change this and that would be good. And it took a while until, oh, then let me see how I can see it differently so it doesn't hurt. So I started to change myself. And through that, I learned so much about myself. And I was still trying to change myself to not hurt to what the I guess energy that was tended towards me. And then came the time, okay, which one is it where it's my perception, and where is it where actually this is abusive to me? And by abuse, I don't mean physical abuse or even verbal abuse, and not necessarily even the typical mental abuses that we know of, but it's simply an abuse that's coming from patterning that's so off the truth. It's a misbelief. It's a familial patterning, where one person says, but this is right. It's like, it has nothing to do with rightness. And it's not true. It's not true for everybody. But for that person, it was true. So, and coming into that acceptance that, okay, even if it's true for him, not for me. Hello, Elijah.
She said, hello, everybody.
It's not true for me. It doesn't hold true for me. And I have to be true to myself. And I love this about him, and I love him, and I love him this way. But these other things are taking from my truth, or I'm not living in my truth. So ultimately, I am self-sabotaging. And my first love is and has got to be me. Because that is my truth flowing through. That is my divinity flowing through. And if I stand in front of that, if I start to tweak it, I'm not being truthful. So it was a lengthy process. I think we were breaking up probably at least 5 years out of the 11 years. It was so many tries, but there was that love, and it still is. It is. What's interesting, I thought I would lose him, right? Oh, he'll step out of my life and it won't be. And he said it many times. Oh, once I leave, I don't come back. So there was that fear of loss, that fear of it's almost like death, right? If I don't see that person ever again, because I've had that also many times. So it's that fear. And I'm finally standing in that and say, I know that love does not disappear. It transforms. And I am ready to stand in that, whatever it transforms into. But I know I'm not losing that love, even though this person will not be here physically next to me. And once I dared step into that, and it was like setting my foot on that platform and taking my other foot and my whole body. Okay, I am standing in this. I got to live my truth.
Yeah.
The
I agree.
relationship dissolved so easily, and it transformed into a friendship.
Which is so beautiful. That was what, thank you for saying that, because I was like, oh, I lost the thought. That was what I was going to say. Like, sometimes you get with someone and there is that romantic connection, and as time goes along, um, it transforms, like you say, the love transforms, and so sometimes things don't work out because it's more of that soul friend connection, that soul love connection. So I've definitely had that, and yeah, it definitely was a long process for me and my ex. Like, we had a lot of conversations about it. Because yeah, I remember we had the breakup conversation at that point. This was back in like 2021, I think. And so in March of 2021 was when we had that conversation, and then we were living together. So we just kind of kept things the same until it came time for us to both move out in August. And then even after that, it wasn't until September that we finally, cut it off. And I pitched that idea of friendship, and for us that wasn't our journey. But I've had that happen with exes, where I think I only have like one ex, but again, like, up until this point, most of my past relationships, even beyond romantic relationships, have been my initiations into understanding my own traumatic patternings. But they were these very initiatory relationships that taught me a lot about myself as well. So a lot of those people are no longer in my life at this current point in time because we reached our lessons. But I think I have one ex that we turned into good friends because we realized um, it just, we got a little confused. um,
Confusion.
well, and I don't even know if it was confused, but it was just like, because we felt so strongly for each other in that way, and we had such a deep love so fast, and we were the opposite gender. We were like, this has to be romantic love. Um, and then after like a month, we were like, this doesn't feel right. Like, something's off. And then we just realized, oh, because we're like brother and sister, like we just really love each other. Anyway, so yeah, it's a powerful journey when you start prioritizing self-love. Because I think for me, that was what was so exciting, was for the first time in my life, I was choosing me. I was choosing self-love. I was choosing to deal with the fear of the unknown versus living to make someone else happy. Uh, ooh. And so there, I don't even know how to put words to it, but there's such a sense of security within that, even through the fear of the unknown. And also, what's coming up to me to touch on too is sometimes it's hard to leave relationships if there's a lot of codependency. So that codependency is that feeling of, oh, I need this person. I can't be alone. They need to, like, I can't support myself without the support of this other person. It's feeling like you are codependent on another, human to be okay in this world and survive. And a lot of us deal with that, even if it's not like chronic codependency, even if it's just situational with certain people. When we get in those codependent states, we forget our autonomy, we forget our ability to stand in our power, we forget how strong we are. And for me personally, when I've been codependent, it it felt like, what I'm seeing in my head is like a giant, like, cinder block that I was always carrying around, and this cinder block was everyone else's happiness. And it was like, I'm in charge, and if I make everyone happy, then in return I get to receive love and whatever these people give to me in return. And if I don't hold that up, then I don't know, it just, like, this fear of being alone forever, or not being worthy, or that I didn't try hard enough, or I'm not like worthy enough of relationships. So something that happens as well is when you start shifting into standing in your power and loving yourself, any need for codependency does kind of dissolve away. So you get to also see where there are imbalances in your relationships, and where your friends may be codependent with you. And so it opens the door to have conversations on how to like spread the awareness of self-love to the people you care about in your life. So I'm getting getting lost in the astral, so I'm going to pause here, but that's kind of what it's tricky. But codependency, like, check in to see if that's something that you navigate, and if it is, what is the root behind feeling codependent with someone. What is that support that they give you that you feel like is missing from how you give it to yourself? So if you feel like you really struggle with self-love and you're codependent on someone because you feel like that's the only way to get love, that could be a sign of like the first step to work on. How do we learn to love ourselves? For me, that was changing my mental talk to myself. I was such a bully to myself. And now when I'm feeling that pressure to be hard on myself, I just pause and I go, what would I do or say if this was my best friend, if this was Melinda, if this was someone that I really love and care about, if they were saying these things or having this problem, what would I say to them? And that helps me get out of this like self-negative loop of like, you're not doing things, whatever, enough. So yeah.
Thank you. You said codependency a few times. I was going to make a note here that probably next time we can talk on that, because that is a huge topic. And it's something that it took me many years to come out of. I was raised in a codependent family. I acted in codependent ways, and I thought it was love.
Yeah.
Really, it was that's what it was stamped as. Oh, you must love him. You hold his hand all the time and you kiss him a lot, and you know, a lot of affection. And interesting how, you know, how much we learn as human beings, how far along we've come into understanding ourselves, and really those traps that are wrapped in the packaging of love are really not. You know, actually think back to other relationships. You know, control is wrapped as love. Oh, I care about you so much, so I want to make sure you don't hurt yourself, so don't do this and this and that and that. You know, we know that when usually it's from our loving parents. And so everything comes back to you, right? Your relationship with yourself. And where does that spruce from? Because ultimately, that is your relationship with that which creates all, that which created you. That direct line, that golden line, and you accepting that you are a descendant of that source, of that pure source. And even that, like, interesting, that's coming in. I get a lot of people's minds immediately, just even a thought of that, there is that fear that arises, and immediately want to step out of that space because I'm not deserving, I'm not worthy, I have sinned. If the source sees what I do, then oh my gosh, I'm not living up to that. And that's so interesting, is that interesting? Well, interesting now because I see it more clearly, but that it's so in the collective that even bringing that up, it's, I feel, I feel in the collective and future viewers that comes in, that fear resonates in the field. And what I say about that is, there's nothing that you do in the perception of that pure source that cannot be dissolved. You are birthed anew every moment. that is the promise, that salvation that is given to you. So once you know, then every moment you can choose to align with that truth, with your connection, with the truth of yourself, your authenticity. And if you make a mistake, then you'll have a consequence, and next time you'll choose different. You will have another chance given, and another, and another. This is a training. We are training to be our best selves. We are training to learn what is it like to have an authentic relationship with ourselves, in ourselves, so that we can have an authentic relationship with everybody. Because when you have that authentic relationship with yourself, then that's what you start to see in your environment. So then this goes back to the first part of the fear of losing relationships. In this space, there is no fear of losing the relationships, because you realize it will simply transform. It may transform into a relationship where you don't see each other anymore. That's okay. That's what it's meant to be. From where you'll be standing at that point, it will not hurt, because you will be embracing that love that is you.
Oh, yes.
That is inherently you. So yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna reflect? And I think that's a good point to close it there after that.
I'm feeling the same. Just a couple of things coming through for me. The last, I agree completely with what you say there. And what came for me was, we're never truly losing anything. We're never truly being punished. Everything, when we make mistakes and our life path changes, it's just a redirection. Whenever we lose people, whenever people exit, whenever that relationship comes to its finality, it's opening space for, I say better, not in the sense of people are better than one another. What I mean by that is the next up leveling, the next set of lessons that are going to serve you both in that sense. So better as in like the next progression, that next step that's getting you even further to a state of complete self-love, or even just awareness of how you show up in the world. And then to kind of close it out, there's a couple of exercises that came through for anyone who's interested, for anyone that resonates. This is a couple of journaling prompts you can do. And if you're not someone that likes writing, or writing is difficult, or whatever the case may be, you can also do it through like a voice recorder if you would prefer that way. But what came through for people who are feeling called to this exercise, writing down, journaling, reflecting, what does love mean to you? What does true love look like? Both receiving it and giving it. Secondly, where do you stand with yourself right now? How do you feel about yourself? This one might be a little more in depth in terms of the emotional stuff that comes up, but how do you feel about yourself? And see, and like, how would you like your self-love relationship with yourself to look like? So for those that resonate, I feel like that will give you a really good idea with where your mind is currently, where your beliefs are at, where your heart is at, with how you perceive love, with how you are both consciously and subconsciously giving love to others, and how you are loving yourself. And then from there, you can start working on the aspects that feel like they need more attention and care to it. But that's about all that came up for me. And this is definitely a potent conversation that we can continue adding on to in future discussions. And yeah, but I think what we talked about today was powerful, and I feel really good about it.
Yes, thank you. And please comment, how did this land for you? What questions do you have? What would you like us to explore on next time? Because this is all of us learning together.
Yeah.
Oh, and please subscribe and like and hit the bell button.